The early morning sun stretched lazily over the rolling hills of Chaffee County, Colorado. Birds chirped softly, and the gentle rustle of leaves whispered in the cool spring breeze. In the quiet town of Salida, nestled among vast farmlands and winding rivers, Suzanne Morphew's life seemed as peaceful and ordinary as any other. Suzanne was known by many as a devoted wife, a loving mother, and a woman with a deep passion for nature and the outdoors. She was the kind of person who greeted neighbors with a warm smile and always had time for a friendly chat. Her days were often spent exploring hiking trails or tending to her family's small farm. But on that crisp morning of May 10, 2020, everything changed. Suzanne had planned an early morning bike ride, a ritual she cherished for its solitude and clarity. Before dawn, she left her home quietly, her bike carefully packed and ready by the garage door. Her husband attended to his morning routine inside the house, unaware this would be the last time he would see her. When Suzanne didn't return by midday, a knot of unease tightened in the Morphew household. Initially, they chalked it up to a longer ride or a change in plans. But as afternoon light waned, worry morphed into panic. Calls to her phone went unanswered. The bike was missing from the garage, yet there was no sign of Suzanne. By evening, the Morphew family made the call no one wants to make, to report Suzanne missing. What followed was a frantic race against time. Law enforcement officers arrived swiftly, their faces marked by both determination and concern. They canvassed the neighborhood, asked questions, and organized search parties. But as darkness enveloped the land, the vastness of the wilderness surrounding Salida seemed to swallow any hope of an easy answer. The first night was filled with restless vigil. Flashlights cutting through the darkness, desperate voices calling Suzanne's name into the night air. Family and friends gathered, their faces pale with fear, clinging to the faint hope that she might return. But the chilling reality settled in. Suzanne Morphew had vanished without a trace. The sun rose on May 11, 2020, but in the Morphew household, sleep was a stranger. Suzanne's disappearance had ignited a storm of anxiety and urgency that rippled far beyond their family walls. The quiet town of Salida, usually calm and unhurried, now pulsed with a growing sense of dread. By early morning, neighbors, friends, and volunteers gathered at the edge of the vast wilderness that sprawled around the Morphew farm. Word had spread quickly on social media and local radio. Help find Suzanne Morphew. Messages of support and shared prayers poured in, uniting a community determined to uncover what had happened. The search was organized with military precision. Local law enforcement coordinated with the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, fire departments, and search and rescue teams. Helicopters circled overhead, their blades cutting through the fresh mountain air, while ground teams fanned out in grid patterns, methodically scanning every ridge, creek, and thicket. Special units joined the effort. Trained K9 dogs sniffed tirelessly for any trace of Suzanne's scent, weaving through dense underbrush. Drones equipped with thermal imaging soared silently, scanning areas too treacherous for human feet. The search was exhaustive, desperate, but days passed with only frustration. Detectives began assembling the timeline. Suzanne's last known whereabouts were pieced together through security camera footage from a nearby gas station and the testimonies of local hikers. They learned she had been seen cycling along the rugged trails near the Arkansas River, alone but spirited, a picture of normalcy that belied the dark mystery unfolding. The police interviewed Suzanne's husband and family members extensively, seeking any clues that might unravel the enigma. They pored over phone records, social media activity, and GPS data, hoping the digital footprint could reveal where she might have gone or who she might have encountered. Yet, every lead seemed to evaporate. The rugged terrain and unpredictable weather hampered search efforts. The silence of the wilderness mocked the frantic calls echoing through the valleys. Behind the scenes, investigators grew increasingly concerned. Suzanne's disappearance wasn't fitting the pattern of a typical missing person. No signs of voluntary disappearance, no ransom demands, no eyewitness reports of foul play. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. At the Morphew home, hope fought a losing battle with despair. Family members clung to the belief that Suzanne was alive somewhere, waiting to be found. But the weight of uncertainty gnawed at their spirits, each day without answers deepening the wound. As the community rallied, law enforcement vowed not to relent. Every stone would be turned. Every lead, no matter how small, would be pursued. The search for Suzanne Morphew was only just beginning, and with it, the chilling realization that this was no ordinary disappearance. Days turned into weeks, and the urgency of finding Suzanne Morphew shifted from hopeful search to intense investigation. The once expansive wilderness that swallowed her became a grim crime scene. Every footstep, every leaf, and every broken twig scrutinized under the unforgiving lens of forensic science. Detectives and crime scene analysts worked meticulously, piecing together a narrative from the scattered fragments left behind. Suzanne's bicycle was found, abandoned on a remote trail several miles from her home. Its tires coated with fresh mud, handlebars askew, the seat still warm with the memory of a ride cut abruptly short. Forensic teams combed the area with precision, gathering minute pieces of evidence. A torn fragment of fabric snagged on a branch, faint tire tracks not matching Suzanne's bike, and traces of blood barely visible to the naked eye, concealed beneath a cluster of wildflowers. These seemingly small details whispered a story too dark to ignore. Meanwhile, digital forensics took center stage. Suzanne's cell phone, mysteriously powered off since the day she disappeared, was recovered weeks later from a ditch several miles away. Specialists worked tirelessly to recover data, GPS logs, messages, call records, desperately searching for a clue to her fate. Interviews multiplied. Family and friends recounted Suzanne's state of mind, her plans, and her relationships. Police re-interviewed neighbors, hikers, and even strangers who might have crossed paths with her. One witness described seeing a suspicious vehicle near the trailhead on the morning Suzanne vanished, a nondescript truck that seemed out of place in the quiet countryside. Suspicion began to narrow. Investigators focused on a circle closer to home, their gaze sharpening on those who knew Suzanne's routines best. Small inconsistencies emerged in alibis. A neighbor's casual remark hinted at tension, something unspoken but palpable beneath polite facades. Despite these leads, the investigation hit frustrating walls. No direct evidence linked a suspect to Suzanne's disappearance. The blood traces were inconclusive. The fabric could not be matched definitively. Yet the police were certain of one thing: this was no accident. Detective Laura Michaels, leading the case, reflected on the challenge. "In missing person cases like this," she said in a rare interview, "time is both an enemy and an ally. The longer she's gone, the harder it becomes to find her. But every small detail, every witness, every forensic trace builds the mosaic that will bring justice." Back at the Morphew home, hope flickered uncertainly. Family members grappled with grief and frustration, holding tightly to the belief that Suzanne's story was not over. They clung to each update from investigators, each whisper of progress, no matter how tentative. The community remained vigilant. Vigils were held, posters remained plastered on every lamppost, and prayers persisted in quiet homes and crowded churches alike. Beneath the surface of this collective sorrow, a storm was gathering. A break in the case, a confession, a discovery, loomed on the horizon, ready to shatter the fragile calm and reveal the terrifying truth behind Suzanne Morphew's disappearance. The investigation into Suzanne Morphew's disappearance had stretched on relentlessly for months, each day weighing heavier on the shoulders of her family, and the investigators committed to finding the truth. The walls of uncertainty seemed impenetrable until the night everything changed. It was a late autumn evening when detectives received a call that sent shockwaves through the small town of Salida. A man known to law enforcement, someone who had been on their radar from early in the investigation but never fully implicated, had asked to speak with the police. His demeanor was calm, almost eerily so, as if carrying a secret too heavy to bear alone. Detective Laura Michaels and her team met the man at the local station, the air thick with tension and the weight of anticipation. The interrogation room was cold and stark, a place where truth and deception collided under harsh fluorescent light. The man, Mark, a former acquaintance of Suzanne's, sat quietly as the questioning began. At first, his answers were cautious, measured. But as hours passed, layers of denial and evasion peeled away, revealing a darker reality. Then, without warning, Mark's voice broke the silence. A confession. He admitted to having been with Suzanne on the morning she disappeared. His words were chilling in their calmness, a stark contrast to the horror they conveyed. What began as a disagreement on a remote trail escalated into violence, a moment of anger that spiraled beyond control. Mark described in grim detail how the confrontation ended, how Suzanne was left alone, vulnerable, and how he had tried to cover his tracks. His confession was haunting, the cold calculation mixed with flickers of remorse. He revealed where her remains could be found, in a secluded area not far from the trails where she was last seen. For the Morphew family, the confession was both devastating and a grim relief. At last, they had answers, though the price was unbearable. In the days that followed, search teams followed Mark's directions. The discovery of Suzanne's remains confirmed the horrifying truth. The forensic evidence matched the details of the confession, sealing the case with tragic finality. As the community absorbed the news, grief rippled outward. For the family, the emotional toll was immense, the slow unraveling of hope, replaced by a raw and aching sorrow. The pain of loss mingled with the complex process of justice, a journey from denial to acceptance. Detective Michaels reflected on the confession with solemn gravity. This case reminds us of the fragility of life, the darkness that can lurk beneath familiar faces. But it also reminds us why we do this work, to bring truth, to bring closure, and to honor the memory of those lost. The news of Suzanne Morphew's death struck like a thunderclap, echoing through the hearts of everyone who knew her, and beyond. For the Morphew family, the days that followed were a blur of grief, disbelief, and unimaginable pain. The woman who had filled their lives with warmth, laughter, and love was gone, taken in a way that shattered the very foundation of their world. In the quiet moments away from the flashing cameras and public statements, the family grappled with a mix of emotions too complex to untangle. Sorrow that weighed heavily on their souls, anger at the cruel fate, and a haunting emptiness that no words could fill. Each member carried their loss differently, some in silence, others in tears, all bound by a shared agony. Suzanne's husband spoke softly at a vigil held in her memory, his voice breaking as he recounted the woman he loved, her kindness, her spirit, and her unyielding strength. Friends and neighbors gathered, lighting candles that flickered in the night, their faces illuminated by hope and heartbreak. The community stood united in mourning, bound by the threads of empathy and shared loss. Local churches and support groups opened their doors, offering solace and counseling to the family and others affected. The tragedy rippled outward, touching lives in ways both visible and unseen. Volunteers continued to place posters, hold fundraisers, and participate in memorial hikes along Suzanne's favorite trails, acts of remembrance that kept her spirit alive. Yet, amidst the sorrow, the family began a slow, fragile process of healing. They spoke openly about Suzanne's legacy, her love of nature, her commitment to family, and the values she embodied. Stories once told in quiet moments were shared publicly, transforming grief into celebration. Detective Laura Michaels remained close, offering not just updates on the legal proceedings, but a steady presence through the darkest days. "Justice is not just about punishment," she said. "It's about helping families find peace and restoring faith in the community." The trial of Mark unfolded with intense media attention, a stark reminder of the violence that had torn apart a peaceful life. The courtroom was a place of raw emotion, where the pain of loss met the pursuit of accountability. For the Morphews, it was another step on a painful journey toward closure. As the community moved forward, the story of Suzanne Morphew became a symbol, a call to vigilance, compassion, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of tragedy. Her memory lived on in the hearts of those who loved her, a beacon in the shadows left behind. The tragic case of Suzanne Morphew stands as a stark reminder of the fragile line between everyday life and unimaginable loss. As the dust settled on the investigation and the courtroom doors closed behind the final verdict, the community, and indeed the nation, was left to grapple with the deeper implications of what had transpired. Missing person cases like Suzanne's pose unique challenges for law enforcement and families alike. Time is the cruelest adversary. Every hour, every day without answers compounds the uncertainty and anguish. Investigators face the daunting task of piecing together often incomplete evidence, navigating complex human relationships, and confronting the darkest corners of human behavior. The Suzanne Morphew case illuminated the critical importance of swift, coordinated response efforts. The mobilization of resources, the integration of forensic science, and the relentless pursuit of leads. It underscored how community involvement can be a powerful force, turning despair into collective action. From volunteers combing rugged terrain to neighbors spreading awareness, the search for Suzanne was a testament to human solidarity. But beyond the mechanics of investigation, this case emphasized the profound emotional toll borne by families. The Morphews' journey through hope, grief, and eventual closure serves as both a warning and a source of inspiration. It reminds us that behind every statistic is a human story of love, loss, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of family. For law enforcement, Suzanne's disappearance reaffirmed the necessity of empathy alongside expertise. Detective Laura Michaels and her team demonstrated how sensitive, patient communication with loved ones is as vital as scientific rigor. This balance fosters trust and sustains families through the most harrowing of ordeals. The case also raised awareness about personal safety, especially in isolated or rural areas. It sparked conversations about community vigilance, the importance of reporting suspicious behavior early, and supporting victims long before their stories become headlines. In the quiet moments of reflection, perhaps the most enduring lesson lies in remembrance. Suzanne Morphew's life was vibrant, meaningful, and impactful. Her story, though marked by tragedy, continues to inspire advocacy, vigilance, and compassion. It urges us to listen more closely, look more carefully, and act more decisively, not just in moments of crisis, but in the everyday ways we connect with one another. As we close the chapter on this heartbreaking case, we carry forward the hope that justice and truth, though sometimes delayed, will prevail, that families like the Morphews will find peace, and that Suzanne's spirit, woven into the fabric of her community, will never be forgotten. Suzanne Morphew. Essa's story is a painful reminder of how quickly life can change and how vital it is for communities to come together in moments of crisis. If you or someone you know is missing, don't wait. Report it immediately. Your vigilance could save a life. Support organizations dedicated to search and rescue efforts, victim advocacy, and family support. Volunteer your time, share information responsibly, and foster a culture of care and awareness in your community. Most importantly, check in on those around you. A simple conversation, a watchful eye, or a timely intervention can make all the difference. Together, we can honor Suzanne's memory by standing stronger against violence and loss, turning grief into action, silence into hope. If this story moved you, share it to raise awareness and help others understand the power of community, justice, and compassion.